Our founding fathers were in a pickle. Having just created the new United States of America, they needed someone to lead them. They needed a president, someone who came from the people and was elected by the people to serve over them. However, they didn't know how to do this. Does Congress elect them? Should the states elect them? Should the people elect them? So today I would like to tell you of the origin, history, and a few flaws of the Electoral College. Now, in order to understand the Electoral College and why it was created, you have to understand some of the limitations that were occurring at the time. William Kimberling has a great article on uselectionatlas.org describing what was going on at the time. You see, there were only 4 million citizens of the United States, spread out across 13 states that was covering the entire eastern seaboard. There was no effective way of communication, no nationally circulated newspaper, no telephone lines, TV or radio, so there was really no way in which to campaign. This wasn't a bad thing, however, as campaigning was frowned upon. People thought that the office should choose the man, not the man choose the office, just as George Washington was thrust into office in the first presidency. As such, political parties were also frowned upon. They were thought to be evil. So it was a little bit harder for you to choose office. People chose it for you. So the Founding Fathers decided it was time to make they decided on 4 different ways to elect the president. The first was to have Congress elect the president. However, this idea was quickly tossed aside as it would mar the clear and distinct boundaries between the legislative and executive branches. The second was to have state legislations all elect the president. However, this was also tossed out as it would affect the separation between the state and federal government. The third was to elect the president by direct popular vote. However, states tended to vote for their candidate, their homeboy, as it were. So what would happen was you'd have a candidate from Rhode Island who wouldn't stand a chance against a candidate from New York because New York would have a higher populace. Thus, whoever came from a larger state would win. This left only the Electoral College system, which was quickly adopted in Article 2, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution, and is the current one that we use today. Now, the history of the Electoral College has some starts and some stops. The first form of it came about in the Constitutional Convention when the Constitution was published. Article 2, Section 1 outlines what it's supposed to look like. Each state will have a certain number of delegates based on how many congressmen they have. So, for example, currently, Kentucky has 8 congressmen, 2 senators, and 6 representatives. So they have 8 electoral votes. So, no matter how many people there were, it'd always be directly proportional to Congress. Each delegate was able to cast 2 votes. 1 vote was required to be for someone who was not from the state. These votes would then be sent to Washington, D.C., and the Speaker of the House would read them aloud and tally the votes. Whoever got the most votes was president. Whoever came in second, or the runner-up, was vice president. This method worked well until the year 1800, where its first flaw came. In the year 1800, the 4th election, Thomas Jefferson tied with Aaron Burr. The Constitution states that in the event of a tie, Congress should vote, specifically the House of Representatives, on who wins. Unfortunately, 36 votes later, and a lot of political maneuvering, Thomas Jefferson was elected. Congress freaked, and they passed the 12th Amendment. The 12th Amendment states that each representative or each delegate for the Electoral College can only cast 1 vote for president and 1 vote for vice president. No longer would the vice president be the runner-up, but it would be a separate vote entirely. This is the system we have now. It's changed slightly, but you still cast 1 vote, not 2. So overall, this has gone on for many, many years. This is a map of the 2012 election, and you can see how each state would vote. However, the problem with this system, and its next flaw, is that regardless of what majority of the state voted for which candidate, as long as you got the majority, you win all of the electoral votes, unless you are from Maine or Nebraska. So for example, North Dakota has 3 electoral votes. Since Bush won, he could have won by 51% of the vote and got the 3 electoral votes. However, Delaware also has 3 votes. Al Gore, who was in this election, could have won 95% of the vote and still only gotten 3 electoral votes. The problem with this came in 2000, in this election, when Al Gore won 95%, or won the popular vote, and Bush won the electoral vote. the people of America were panicked. They said, if this is a nation run by us, why is the popular candidate not the one who won? Well, again, it goes back to protecting the states. If you win the big states but not the little states, you could win. So in order to keep everyone safe and to keep the little states still have power, the electoral vote ultimately triumphs. Now, not every system is going to have its flaws. The electoral system doesn't work perfectly. However, it hasn't failed us yet in over 200 years that it's been in effect. So overall, it's yet one more example of a great system set in place by our founding fathers 200 years ago that still remains true and solid today.